Hello everyone, and welcome to Tech Data BSP's How to Survive an IBM Cognos Security Audit webinar. My name is Jared. I'm from the sales team here at BSP, and I'll be today's moderator. We also have with us Eric Pleiss, our solution specialist, who will be presenting. BSP Group here at Tech Data has been helping guide customers through their IBM Cognos journeys now for over a decade. And today we want to show you how we can help you navigate the uncertainty of an IBM security audit. We only have about 20 to 25 minutes allotted for the presentation itself, leaving plenty of time for your questions, so don't be shy. Before I turn it over to Eric, a few housekeeping points. Please use the QA tool for your questions, because we will have time after the presentation to answer them. Even if you don't have questions, stay on for that portion because you may pick up on something you weren't expecting to hear, and it could help you. This presentation will be recorded, and you will have access to it. You will be getting a copy of the slides, and those slides will have links to the resources we will be discussing, including download links for free trials of our Meta Manager and Integrated Management Suite products.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jared. So we're going to run through some things that we can do to help you clean up and better understand your Cognos environment so that you're able to survive a security audit. So we've got a couple of tools that we're going to use today from BSP Software. So we're going to use our Meta Manager tool, which is an administrative tool designed for the Cognos administrator to help manage the environment. And then we're also going to use our brand new tool, the Integrated Management Suite, which is a Cognos Analytics extension. And both of those tools will help us sort of navigate around some of the vulnerability or access issues associated with IBM Cognos, right? So understanding where do people have access, what can they see, what capabilities do they have, and then where is my data? Is it being emailed to folks? Are there folks that have access to Cognos that shouldn't? Things like that. And to that end, again, we're going to use a couple of different products. So the first one's Meta Manager. As I mentioned, this is an administrative-facing tool designed for the Cognos admin. This is a Windows installation, so it's installed on your workstation outside of Cognos and gives your administrator the ability to see the whole of the Cognos environment, make bulk changes, do documentation, and really help manage security. So understanding specific security concerns, if there's accounts with direct or overridden security access, again, we mentioned email reports or attachments, and licensing. And a lot of that same functionality also then is going to be available in the Integrated Management Suite. Like I mentioned, this is a Cognos extension, so it is user-facing in terms of how it will be accessed through Cognos. So all of your users have access to this tool. It's totally configurable at the user group and role level, who has what access and what access they have. But it also allows us to do some documentation, to do license and security audits, to understand scheduled content, outputs, security concerns. Again, a lot of what Meta Manager can already do for you. But with IMS, because it's user-facing, it really is a force multiplier. So you could have the head of your different business units manage their individual areas. So are there security concerns in the HR area, in the finance area, accounting, things like that? Empower those department heads or other Cognos power users to be able to do that work and then share what they found back with the administrator, who can ultimately then make the changes. So having said all of that, we've got a couple of different products. Let's just dive right in with a demo. We're going to be looking at Cognos Analytics. We're using the long-term support release 11.0.13. I'm going to spin up a screen share here. So I'll just give that 1 minute to load. And what you'll see then is I'm at the Cognos welcome screen here. Down in the lower left part of the Cognos customers or users then can see that directly, a number of different tools within there. And then on top of that also then we've got Meta Manager. And Meta Manager again is that installed Windows installation tool that allows us then to navigate into our Cognos environment. And we're connecting to your Cognos environment using your Cognos credentials already. So connecting through the gateway and dispatcher, using that Cognos logon, or through your Signal sign-on, depending on your individual setup. But again, I can see once I'm logged in then the whole of my environment. I can navigate down to see individual reports, schedule, report versions, run history, a lot of different sub-objects within the content store. And because I'm logged in today as an administrator, I also have the ability to drill down into the namespace and understand for any particular user if they have content in their My folders, again, what kind of content that is, where it's coming from. So I have the ability to see very quickly the whole of my Cognos environment and then make multiple changes. So for example, if I wanted to just find all the reports that exist in my environment, I can make a very quick search, drag over a full list of reports, and if I wanted to change a default like run history retentions or output retentions to, let's say, 3 months or 3 weeks, whatever I want to do, I can go ahead and make those changes. So with MetaManager, when we're talking about security, really where we want to start then is a security audit. And so MetaManager's Security Auditor allows us to take a snapshot of what the security looks like at any given point in time in your Cognos environment. And when we run that audit, we're going to save it out to a database, and that allows us to then compare our audits over time. So MetaManager is going to run through the environment. The environment, again, that we're on today is 11.0.13. It's a local test environment, so I've got, 50 accounts and 10,000 or so objects. So not a huge production environment, but you should be able to get a pretty good understanding of how this could work in your own environment based on what we're seeing today. So MetaManager is, again, running through the environment. You can see it's running through team content, all my folders, looking to understand how that security is set up. So it'll take just about a minute to run, but instead of waiting for that, we'll go ahead and look at a snapshot that I ran earlier this morning. What we're able to see then is, here's our directory folder. I can look at the specific Cognos namespace to understand if there's any nested group and role memberships associated with that. And I can go down to the access right and report level to see, based on the membership here, what are the things that a person in one of these roles would have access to. And of course, I can look at that same type of information for users within my LDAP. So I'm pulling all the users from my namespace. In this case, OpenDJ is an LDAP namespace, similar to Active Directory. But again, I can see, okay, this user, Eric, has access to these groups. And with nested memberships, I can very easily see that full account lineage to understand from start to finish what is that membership look like. And again, if I include access rights, I'm going to see the specific content that someone has access to. So if I scroll to the right, then I can understand if I click on account summary, Eric has read, transverse, and transpose access to this report. At the same time, if I see anything here that I don't like and I want to make a change, I can highlight that object, right-click on Edit, or down at the bottom, I can click Edit in Security Editor. That's going to open up another tool in MetaManager, right? So I start at the high level. I look at my security. I can understand what's happening and who has access to what. And then I can jump over to Security Editor, and I can see, well, Eric had access to this because I was in the empty group. And if I wanted to remove that access, in this case, I can go ahead and just highlight the empty group, hit the delete key, and now I've made a change to that access. So I can very quickly go from this high-level understanding who has access to what that can perform a lot of these same tasks as well. Again, this gives our users the ability to perform some of these actions. So I can come in and I can run this security lineage report directly in Cognos. And the way that IMS works is it's read-only. So whichever user is logged into Cognos, whatever they have read access to, essentially if they can see it and know that it's in Cognos, then they can get reports against it. So again, I've got that same user, Eric, and I can see, again, the group lineage, membership, all the way down to the specific objects that they can access. So again, for example, I could allow some of my users who have access to this run the audit. If they notice any anomalies or things that need to get changed, then they could go ahead and notify the administrator, right? Let the experts who understand their area best provide the update to the administrator. Then the administrator can very quickly, using MetaManager, make those changes. So it does allow that type of work. In addition to being able to do a security audit to understand the security lineage, we can also do a license audit, right? So looking very similarly, instead of looking at what they have access to, we're looking at what type of capabilities does any particular user have. So I can go to the license auditor, I can run that audit, and it'll run through all of the accounts, and it will give me an idea, okay, based on the users I have in my namespace, what are the different users at each different license level? And so I can see username, the full search path, and of course, the last time that they've accessed Cognos. And then just like that security audit, that security lineage, I can see the same thing to understand for a user, where does their capability access come from, right? And again, so very, very easy to see at a high level, what are the issues that might need to be changed? And if I want to make a change, how can I make that change? What are the capabilities? Again, this is user-facing in Cognos, so I can allow some folks that might understand their particular users to know, okay, is that the right level for any individual user? And then they can come and find those users to make sure that it's correct. Again, similar functionality available right out of the box in MetaManager. I can run a license audit. I can understand, again, the same way, who are the users that have access to the different areas. And then just like with Security Auditor, same way, if I notice something I don't like, I can right-click, I can come into the editing area, and now I see I've got users from multiple namespaces here. If I wanted to make a change, I could highlight one of those users, same way, hit the delete key and make a change. So again, very, very quickly, I can go from the high level, who are the users, what license level they're at, down to the very specific and edit a single capability. With MetaManager, I can also go and understand the specific capabilities. And for those capabilities, if I drag them over to the editing area, then I can see, okay, what type of users or who is in there and what type of access do they have as a result of that. So I can get very, very granular, very, very fast, opposed to attempting to do this same type of thing directly in the Cognos administration panel, where it's going to take me 8, 9, 10 clicks just to get to each one of these. And I could grab all of them at once and begin working on them that way. So really, really nice functionality when we're looking at doing some additional work, multiple reports, multiple changes. We can also look at security concerns. So we have a general security concern report that I can grab right out of the box from canned reports. And this security concern report is going to let me know any issue where I might have overridden security or where a user might have direct access to some type of account. So I'll just save this output to my local file system. You could also save it to a network or shared drive of some sort. And then I can document that using MetaManager. So MetaManager will run through this. And of course, best practice tells us, well, all access to objects should be done at the group and role membership. So if a user has direct access, I'd want to change that. And then at the same time, if there's overridden security, I want to understand where have we intentionally made a change where maybe a user should or should not have access to something. So I can see right here, right away, I've got a couple of folders, a package, some reports where a user has some type of overridden security. One of the really nice things about the documentation that I get out of MetaManager, and I can get this same documentation out of the integrated management suite, is that when I export this content, I'm going to also get the search path. So I can go to, let's look at this agent execution history by user. I can grab the search path, copy the search path right out of that documentation, come back into Meta Manager. We're looking at security. I'm going to paste that search path right into the Meta Manager search bar, immediately identify that specific object, and then I can see we have this box is checked. So that means it's not inheriting security from the parent. There's some type of specific change that's been made. I could very quickly uncheck that box, reset this object to inherit, hit apply, and I'm ready to go. So I could go through this full list of objects one by one, or Meta Manager makes it really easy. I can actually just copy all of these objects, and I can go to Meta Manager and I can create what we call a favorite. And a favorite allows me to group objects together based on search path. So I can make a favorites folder called Security Concerns, and this folder exists only in Meta Manager, not creating folders in my Cognos environment. Create that favorites folder, import the list of my favorites, and now I've got all of the objects that have those overridden security policies together. And then I can paste them all into one place. Again, so I can go very quickly from understanding, okay, here are some concerns. I want to review it to make sure maybe this is okay, or maybe I need to make a change. And if I do need to make a change, then very quickly I can come here and be able to make multiple changes with just a handful of clicks. So really, really powerful. Again, we can do that same type of thing with the integrated management suite. So, right, we can look at those security concerns, but we also might have something that's not as obvious, right? So a lot of times we have users scheduling content. That content is generating an email, and then we're sending an email to maybe a Cognos user, maybe some outside users, right? So we can run an audit to understand where is this scheduled content, who owns it, where does it come from, and where does it go? So I ran this earlier today. I have 89 scheduled items, but I can just sort through here and I can see, okay, what object is it attached to? Who owns that object? Is the schedule active or not? And then in this case, I've sorted on two different columns. So first, is it emailed? And then if it is emailed, what I'm looking for is the report attached, right? If that report is attached versus having a link to the report, that means anyone who has that email, whether they have access to Cognos or not, could potentially be seeing sensitive content. So again, what I could do then is I could go ahead and download this export. Then when I review that export, just like with the other Meta Manager export, I have the ability then to come in and sort by those content, and then I can grab those search paths of that object, and I can import those, and then I can make changes to those in bulk. So it gives me a really powerful way, again, to go very quickly from identifying the problem, lumping the content together that makes sense, and then fixing that problem. So it really is, right, a start-to-finish solution in terms of what we can do with this. Also, while I'm in here, right, I can also see who am I sending this content to, right? So I can see a number of these reports. They're going to me. They're going to one of my colleagues. They're going to Jared, in this case, who's hosting our webinar today. So I can see all of that type of information, as well as, right, how often does it run? Does it run on a specific day of the week? And then just some good cleanup, right? So by default, we probably want to have some type of best practice in place where schedules have some type of end date. So it looks like I'm pretty okay for some of these. But if we see things with no end date, they're just going to run on and on and on forever, that's something that we might want to then look to clean up, right? We want our schedules to have an end date so that if their usefulness ceases, we're not any longer tying resources to that. We've also got the same information for any potential report versions or jobs that are in our account. So again, really, really good way, again, to say, take that information, understand it, digest it, and then be able to take it back somewhere where we can edit it. One other thing that's really important in terms of security is who's accessing our account. And so one of the things you want to be able to look at maybe is understanding who's actually logging into Cognos, right? Let's tie this back to that license audit we did. Here's all the different users that we have at different levels, but are these users actually logging into Cognos? Do they need a license? Is that license at the right level? Things like that. So what I can actually do with Content Documenter is begin to build my own specific documentation. In this case, I'm going to use MetaManager's built-in search to understand all my accounts that have a Cognos profile, right? This is going to give me all the folks that have logged into Cognos. I can just drag that full search result over. And then what I want to understand in this case is I want to pull their audit database details for these users because I want to understand when they've signed in, right? So again, I can understand who's actually using my Cognos environment. Again, I'm going to choose an Excel output, but I could output it in a number of ways. And I'm just going to save it right out to my local file system. And then I can document that. Again, I'm running through about 50 users. And so it'll just take a couple of minutes for that to finish up. But then we're going to be able to see who logged on, when did they log on. Again, very important when we're looking at understanding that license level. What do they have access to? Where are they coming from? I can also see here if there's a large number of failed sign-on attempts. Because I'm going to see, well, was it a positive sign-on? Was it negative? What's happening in terms of the additional information related to that? So really, really helpful to be able to grab some of that type of information. So I can see here for any of these objects, I'm going to come to the account audit, and I can see then we've got log-ons, log-on expired, if there was a failure. But for each of these users, I can understand when that's happening. Again, just another piece of that security puzzle that allows me as the administrator then to understand. The other thing I can do with this is I can grab this. I've got all the users then that I've logged in, so I can sort and filter on that. I can also use MetaManager then just to generate a list of all the users that exist in the LDAP, whether they've logged into Cognos or not, right? So I could do the same thing. I could come into my LDAP. I could grab all the users. I could build some documentation, and then I could compare, here's the users in my LDAP. Here's the users that I've logged into Cognos. Are there discrepancies there? Do I have users that aren't logging into Cognos? Because they're in that namespace, they could potentially log into Cognos, and now I'm having a license counted against them. So again, just being able to do many, many different things with this tool. And again, once we start looking at documentation, we're doing a very specific use case here, right? I just want to understand when they've logged in. But maybe I want to report against some reports. I want to understand how this report got built. I want to get report specification. I want to understand the queries that are in it. I can grab that type of information, right? And we've got customers that do this type of stuff all the time. We can also grab some more canned reports. So just like the security concerns report, we could do a stored outputs, right? And this is a really helpful report. As long as you're in here doing maintenance, well, I want to find out where all my stored outputs are. Where does content stored bloat maybe exist? Where do I have really large outputs? We had a customer probably about 6 months ago. They ran the stored outputs report, and just by removing old outputs that were more than, I think, 4 years old, they were able to reduce the size of their content store by about 25%. So there's a lot of different things that we can do with MetaManager just by doing some documentation, beginning to understand how the environment fits together, security-wise, license-wise, right, schedule-wise. All this starts coming together as a way, as an administrator, what can I do with this tool? But then at the same time, with Integrated Management Suite, who are these power users? You know, who is the user that's always coming to you as the admin and saying, hey, how does this work? Or how does this work? Or how do we do this? Or how did so-and-so get access to this? Right? We can now empower those users with a tool like IMS. They're able to do their own research, but because IMS then is a read-only tool, they can't break something. They can't make changes that they shouldn't make, right? So they can do that investigation. They can download those outputs. They can then share them back with you as the administrator, and then you're there to make the change. So really is a couple of tools that really, really play well together, give the administrator a lot more powers with MetaManager, and give the users, again, a force multiplier through IMS. So a lot of different things we can do related to security with these two tools. Going back then with all of this, have we had any questions come in yet from the audience, Jared?
Yeah, we have just a few. So the first question is, can you run these reports automatically?
Yeah, so great question. So IMS, because it's user-facing, you can go in and run those at any time, right? Again, it's very, very quickly. I select the module, I go to the module, and I click Run, and it goes. With MetaManager, again, we're looking then to ease some burden of the administrator. So MetaManager does have a scheduling feature. Anywhere in MetaManager you see the schedule icon or the save icon, we do have some ability then to do some scheduling. So we could schedule a report. So if I wanted to run a security concerns report every Monday, what I can do is come in here, run the security concerns report, tell MetaManager where to save it. In this case, I'm just going to save right over the top of that one and click schedule. And MetaManager has a nice scheduling feature that I can set this up on a weekly basis to run every Monday. And let's say I wanted to run at about 6 a.m. That way I've got an updated copy. And right when I get to my desk then in the morning, I can go to the file system and grab that file. So I can go there, I can create this, and then our scheduler tool, what it does is it allows us to, at any time, add or remove different schedules from here. So I can add a schedule, I can create something, I can turn things on and off. There's a lot of different ways that I can use that tool. So it doesn't have to be one report. I could run many reports all off of the same schedule. So if I wanted security concerns, I wanted scheduled content, I wanted all those things we talked about today, I could add them all to the same schedule and run them at one time.
A couple more questions. Are you ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Perfect. Is it possible to test the software?
Yeah, so what we'll do is at the end of the presentation today, we're going to send you guys all away with a trial code so that you have access to both MetaManager and the Integrated Management Suite for 30 days. And you can download that. The link to download will be available in the slides that come out with the program, as well as we'll provide that in some of the notes afterwards for follow-up. But definitely get it, try it out, use it in your environment. Both Integrated Management Suite and Cognos and MetaManager are functional with up through the latest release of Cognos Analytics. We saw today we're in the long-term support release 11.013, functioning with the newest Cognos 11.1 as well. So really, really great tool. We'll continue to remain supported and up to date for everything Cognos is doing and everything that our admins need to do as well.
Perfect. So I don't see any more questions at this time. So I guess we'll go ahead and end. So a couple of things. One, obviously, if you do run into any questions, feel free to reach out. You'll be getting a follow-up email from us. Like Eric said, it'll have trial key information for both MetaManager and Integrated Management Suite. And from there, we can obviously start a dialogue to see, what's going on in your environment, what we can do to help you, and, just really figure out where we can come in and make an impact for you. So thanks again for attending today. Eric, if you don't have anything else, I guess we can go ahead and end it today.